Continuing from the state capitol in Hartford on this first day of the 2013 legislative session, a chat now with Republican State Senator Jason Welch of Bristol. He represents the 31st Senate District. Senator, a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on your show, Jeff.
You bet. Now, you hail from Bristol. You
Yes.
lived a lot of your life in Torrington.
That's right.
And you're representing, I believe, the towns now of Bristol, Harlington, Plainville, Plymouth, and Thomaston.
You got it.
So that includes part of Litchfield County as
It
well as
does.
the Farmington Valley.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the makeup of your district. I guess you have a big municipality and small towns, so you run pretty much the whole gamut of what Connecticut has to offer.
We do. It's a great cross-section. We've got great urban pockets, obviously, in Bristol, and we've got a lot of great country out there in the outlying towns.
Right. Now, looking at what Connecticut is facing right now, of course, money is a lot of it. I'm sure that before the session began, you probably heard from constituents, at least in the small towns, please don't cut our state aid. And
Right.
probably from the big towns as well, because there are a lot of things going on, and state aid is so important to those small towns, town road aid, things like that, education cost sharing. What are they telling you? Are they concerned this year because of the budget deficit situation?
They absolutely are, and I think this session is not so much about money, but really about government and how we structure it and how it serves the people, because I think that's what we've had wrong over the last 10, maybe even 20 years, which has led into the crisis that we're facing right now, which is $1 billion deficit for the next fiscal year and $1 billion deficit for the year after. When it comes to town aid, people are very concerned about cuts to town aid because the prior budget really boxed us into a few corners, and that's one of the corners we're staring at. But what I think the legislature needs to be perfectly clear on is if you're going to touch town aid, and I think that's one of the things we ought not to touch, but if you're going to touch town aid, well, then we need to look at these unfunded mandates that have essentially handcuffed our municipalities for the last 20 years. We need to give them relief so that they can manage their budgets, they can manage their education system, they can manage their towns the way they want to without Hartford telling them how to do it but not providing them funds.
You know, that sounds really good if you're able to do it, but you know, when you try to tackle things like prevailing wage, like binding arbitration, do you think there's really ever any hope of actually sweeping those off the table to be able to keep town aid constant? Those are tough things to get rid of, aren't they?
Well, I don't think you need to get rid of them, number one. Yes, those
Okay.
are two big unfunded mandates. They can be adjusted, and I think there's probably some will to adjust them.
Okay.
But those are only two. We've got hundreds. In fact, the last time I looked at the comprehensive list of unfunded mandates, it was a binder about this
Wow.
thick. It was a press conference I had 2 years ago where I brought the issue to the forefront of the legislature then to, I think, a little bit of tone deafness, but I'm thinking we're going to have a much broader discussion. For instance, the state of Connecticut tells municipalities what types of cleaning fluids they have to use when they clean their own buildings. That's micromanagement at its worst, is what it is. Let's give them the freedom, from the small even to the large.
No, I guess just for our viewers to understand, probably the oversimplified definition of a unfunded mandate is the state telling you to do something but not giving you the money with which to do it.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's got to stick in the craw of mayors and first selectmen all over the place.
It does.
Yeah.
And look, we have a governor who was a mayor, so he ought to get this. He ought to understand the importance of this.
Well, you know, let me run by one quote from the governor's address just now that we heard today. Anyone who tells you the budget we passed 2 years ago didn't do its job, that didn't make real changes in how we approach our finances, is simply not telling the truth. You hear that, you talked about $1 billion budget deficit situation. You see a disconnect between the two?
Well, I guess it depends on which side of the coin you're looking at. Did it do its job? Yes, it absolutely did do its job, but it did the wrong job. We raised taxes. We did not cut spending. We cut current services, but we spent more in the last 2 years than we did in the prior 2 years. So what is the job that it did do? Well, I think it even slowed our economy down further. It made it difficult for middle-class families to put food on the table. It made it harder for small businesses to service the communities that they live in. It did its job, it just did the wrong job.
Well, when the budget situation comes up for discussion, Senator Welch, this time around, your colleague we spoke with just a bit ago, Senator Kane of Watertown, hoped that Hartford would perhaps learn that it was good to have a bipartisan discussion like we had back in December in the special session for the deficit mitigation. Do you see that bipartisanship continuing when we get into the real nitty-gritty of the budget situation come February on?
I do, and it has to, because the Republican Party and the Democrat Party look at these very difficult problems from two different sets of glasses. And for the last 20 years, we've really been looking at it through their set of glasses, which has led to the crisis that we're in. So they need to start to look at these problems from a different perspective, which I think is why we're at the table, and I think they appreciate that. So I think we're going to continue to see that.
Going to be a long session, isn't it?
Will be a long session.
It is the long session, of course, but I mean, there's
It'll be
just
longer than a
so
long
much.
session.
Longer than a long session. You expect this then to perhaps see some special sessions into the summer?
I do. I don't think we're all going to get it done by the beginning of June. So.
You know, there's so much, you know, just the deficit situation, the budget, gun control, school safety. There is a very tough agenda, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
You up for it? Feel the fire in the belly still? And
we got it. This is probably one of the most important times in the history of our state. Okay. I'm honored to be representing the 31st during this very difficult and this very important time. I'm up for it.
Well, Meet the Leaders will be on top of that. Senator Welch, a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you so much. Nice to see you and nice to meet you, and we wish you well.
Likewise.
Senator Jason Welch of the 31st Senate District, a Republican from the town of Bristol, our guest right now on Meet the Leaders. Stay with us. We'll be back from the state capitol in Hartford in just a moment.